Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to discuss about method overloading. So before you watch this video, please do watch the previous video on methods so that you can get a good idea of what methods are. So let's get started. Let's first understand what method overloading is. Method overloading is a feature that allows the class to have more than one method having the same name. What does that mean? Till now, we've created methods. So what we have done is we've given different names for different methods. But what we do in method overloading is we give the same name to all the methods, but there will be a change in parameters. So there are two types of method overloading. One is by changing the number of arguments and the other is by changing the data type. So by changing the number of arguments is we will have different parameters for different methods. And by changing the data type is we'll change the data type here. So let's check both of them on our IDE. Now we are on our IDE. So let's create some methods here. Public int. The name of the method is add, and let's put two parameters over here. Int x comma int y. Now int sum equals x plus y, and we have to return the sum. Since we have taken the int type, we need to return something. And let's create another method called as public int add. The name of the method would be same. Here we have three parameters: int x comma int y comma int z. So here int sum2 equals x plus y plus z. Yeah. Oh, we need to return this. Return sum2, and let's create another method, public int add, and let's only put a single parameter here, x, and let's say sys out x. Return x. And let's remove this line. Let's return the x value. So we've created three methods over here. Now let's call them and see what happens. All of the methods are having the same method name as add here, but they're having different parameters. Here we have two variables, here there are three, and here there is only one variable. Now let's check what happens. So before we call this method, we need to create an object. So we have seen this before, how to create this object. If you haven't checked this out, please do check my previous videos. Now we've created an object here. Now let's print it out. A dot add, and here let's put only a single parameter. Let the integer be 23, and here a dot add, and here let's give two parameters, 345 comma 567, and here let's give three parameters here. Oops. 345 comma 342 comma 678. This is some random numbers which I'm just typing. Let's remove this. Now let's run this and check what happens. It is showing the answers as 23, 912 and 1365. So what happened here? What it has done is, when we have given a single parameter over here, it has gone here and checked for the method. It has checked for the parameters. So it has checked, can I fit here? No, I can't fit here. So it has checked this. Can I fit here? No, there are three variables, so I can't fit here. And it has checked this one, and it has saw this one parameter over here, and it has thought, yes, I can fit over here. So what is inside this method? We just asked to return return the same value. So the same value got returned. Now, the other case, we gave two integer values over here, 345 and 567. So what it has done, it has checked this particular method. So since it is having two parameters, what it has done, we have mentioned to add both of them and return the value. So both the numbers got added and the value has got returned. The same with the third one. Here 345, 342 and 678. So it has checked, is there any method with three parameters, and it has found this one. Yes, so it got fit here. I mean, those values got replaced with this. I mean, they got inside these variables, and what is written inside this method, we have to add and return the value of that sum. So all the values got added and the sum value has got returned. So this is how it works.
Right now we have seen how method overloading works with a change in the number of parameters. Now let's check it out how it works when there is a change in the data type of the particular parameters. So for example, here we are having it as int and we have two variables x and y. Let's leave it this way. Here let me change this to, let's say, float, and here let the variables be float x and float y. Let's remove this z variable for the ease. Now your float sum2 equals x plus y, then return. So if you could see this, the name of the method is same, but there is only a change in the data type. Here it takes in the int values, and here it takes the float values. So for example, now let me remove this. Now I'll take it as some, let's say, 3.5f, and this one is 5.67f. So here 23,65. So here it is taking in two int values, and here it is taking in two float values. Now let's check the output. See, you could see here the output is 88 and 9.17. So by this we can understand that the method overloading can be done by changing the data type of the parameters. Now you might have understood how method overloading works when we change the data type of the parameters. Now you might get a doubt that will the method overloading work if we change the data type of if we change the return type itself. Like here there is int and here there is float. So if the parameters are the same, will the method overloading work or not? So you might get this question. Now let's check that. Let's put this as int, and let's put this as int, and this is also int. It is showing an error over here. First let's run this. It is showing that Java method add intent is already defined in class. So what happened here is, now for example, if you like pass some value here into this function, for example, you pass when you call this method, you give the values like 23 and 45, so that those values, it will get confused, like into which method it should go. Should it go to this method, or should it go to this particular method? It gets confused and it will just give out an error. So the method overloading doesn't work when you just change the return type of the method. Now you might have understood this. Now let's look at something else. So this is int x, and Now I'll change this to double y. I'll change that to double y, and here let this be int x, int y, and int z. Okay. Now let me remove this particular method. Now what I'll do is x is 23 and y is, here I've taken x as 23 and y is 65. Now something differently, what I'll do is I'll take x as a, capital A. I'll take x as capital A and y as 65. Now you might be wondering, why did you take x as capital A? How does it happen? Like, here we have defined it as int and you have taken it as a. How can you add that character to a double variable? How does that even happen? So wait, here it should be in double, and this should be also in double. Okay, so how does that even happen? So that's what you might be thinking. Now let's run this and check what happens. It is showing the answer as 130.0, as you could see here. Showing it as 130.0. How did that happen? Well, what happened here is typecasting. So what typecasting is, let's check that out. Well, we've discussed regarding this typecasting before, but we'll just revise this again. See, byte and short, int and long. Just consider byte like a small water bottle, and consider short as a bucket, int as a bigger bucket, and consider this long as your overhead water tank. Now, what typecasting is basically is, you can, byte contains a very short range of numbers, short contains a bit more, the range increases a bit, and when you come to the int it increases a bit more, and when you come to the long it increases a lot more. So here you could see character and after that int and then float. So what we have taken before is a is a character there, so we've taken a character value over there, and what happened there was that character variable which we have taken, that has got typecasted into integer variable. So what do you mean by typecasting is, so since there is no character variable present there, it has been put into the integer variable. So that is what typecasting means. So how did you get the numerical value, that 130.0? How did you get that? Every character has a particular ASCII value. So A has certain ASCII value. So that value has been added with the Y value which we have provided. So when you add both of them, the result you got as 130.0. So that is how typecasting works. Now you might have understood the previous one. Now let's look at some other case. I'll create two methods here. Public void, since we need not return anything, and the name of the method is add, and here the parameters are int x, int y, and let's print out as integer method. Let's create one more method, same public void add, and here let it be float, x float y, and here let's say float method. Now we've created two methods. One is the integer method and the other is the float method. Now a.add, let's pass the values here as, let's say 23, 56, some random values. Now these values are integer values. Now you might get a doubt. Now which method would it go into? Like which parameters would it take? Will it go into the integer parameters or will it go into the float parameters? Because before we have discussed about typecasting, in which we've got to know that it can also go into the float parameters. Now it can also fit in these both parameters and it can also fit in these both parameters. So which parameters would it fit in, or will it give an error or will it be a correct program? Let's check that out by running this out. Now, when we ran this program, it is showing us that it is showing integer method over here. So what happened here is when you're given two methods and when the values belong to this particular, like when the values here are integer values, so it will directly go into the integer one. It wouldn't get typecasted and it wouldn't go into the float values. If you don't give it the integer, like if you don't have this integer variables over here, then the second option would be getting typecasted into float variables. But when the option is there, it would always prefer the first option. If you don't have any option over here, then it would choose the second option. So I hope this case is also clear. Let's look at some other case. Now I'll just do a small change over here. Instead of this int, I'll put a float, and here there is one float, and instead of this float, I'll put one int. Now this is what we did, and now let me put the values like this. Now if I run this code, let's see what happens. Will it give the value out or will it throw the error? It has thrown an error. It is showing a reference to add as ambiguous. So what happened here? We gave two integer values. So first, what would it do? It would go and check these parameters, int x and float y. So what can it do here? This 23 gets fit here, and this would, what happens? This integer would be typecasted into float, and then it checks this parameters. And here also, this 23 value should get typecasted into float, and this value should get this value would fit into the integer variable. So what happens is this is some sort of a confusion that happens. So it is throwing an error. It is saying that reference to add is ambiguous. It is like some sort of compile time error. Like what happens here is it gets confused which one to select. So it throws an error. So in such cases, typecasting doesn't happen. So now we've understood everything regarding this method overloading, except one thing. Why are we using this method overloading? What is the advantage of method overloading? The one and only advantage of method overloading is you need not give new names over here. Like you're using add over here. We have selected a name called add. All the methods we are naming them as add, but we're not we're not giving different names. If you give different names, for example, if the code is a very big code, like you're designing some website or you're doing some sort of project, if you give different number of many names, what happens is it creates a sort of confusion. When you read the code again, it would be very hard for you to reuse that code or read that code. So method overloading would be a very advantageous thing in such sort of situations. I hope you understood what method overloading is and how beneficial and advantageous this is in programming. Thank you everyone for watching this video. Please do like, share and subscribe to my channel. We'll meet in the next one.